it's not that distracting versus SSR by itself, or SSR layered on a cube map where they don't align at all. Geez. And then when it disoccludes, it's just like, oh, it's a huge gap. It looks terrible.
Especially in an open world game where you couldn't possibly have the cube maps everywhere you want them to be.
No, you would have to use a lot of generic cube maps. I mean, you could do Insomniac's original Spider-Man did okay enough with that. They used a ton of cube maps, but even then, obviously very approximate and very limited, and that's why they moved away from it.
If you go back to GTA 5, actually, in December of last year, they added in RT Reflections to that game. Right. On consoles, of course, not on PC, Alex, but only on consoles.
Oh, that's really frustrating.
But that game combined real-time cube maps captured from the player location with RT reflections out to a very limited distance. So the problem there is you get that discontinuity, right, when you're combining those two elements. Didn't look very good. Now here, with this more ray tracing centric solution that's probably not relying on that fallback, you're going to have really great reflections across the entire environment, it looks like. And it's just great. Yeah, it's just, especially for like distant buildings and stuff like that, just like we saw in Spider-Man, having perspective correct reflections that are detailed all throughout the environment makes such a big difference in like a cityscape with big glass towers, right?
Right. Just the cohesiveness.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Like, this game is not Red Dead Redemption. A lot of people always point back to Red Dead Redemption like, this looks better than X game that released today. But a lot of that is also just the artistic environment in that game. It's like a lot of diffused materials, rolling hills, not a lot of like huge occluding buildings and structures. And that's where lighting gets super complex.
Yep.
And that's where traditional techniques fail the hardest. And yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a really great looking game, but it has like a lot of aspects of it that make old school rendering work better with it than definitely would work with GTA 6.
Yeah, I mean, not to discount the work that went into that game because it is stunning, for sure. But yes, that type of naturalistic environment tends to work really well with more traditional rasterized techniques. Glass metal buildings on this large scale and all these angles. This stuff is a nightmare, and developers have struggled with it for a long time. I would say CD Projekt Red was one of the first to really kind of solve it with its ray tracing work done on Cyberpunk 2077. For sure. So I'm not surprised that Rockstar would want to take a similar approach and push it as far as they could. And it does seem to be what they're doing here for sure. So I like that a lot. But then not everything does appear to be ray traced. And you actually noticed this right at the end of the trailer, I think, Alex. It's it does seem to be using shadow maps, basically.
Yeah. And this is a little bit surprising. Well, not so, given everything else in the trailer, if there's ray traced reflections, if there's RTGI, something's got to give.
Something's got to give.
But like, so like, Oliver pointed out in the notes and did really well in the trailer that there's a lot of shots like where you don't see some of the hallmarks of ray traced shadows that you'd expect, like the really nice, like tapered shadow where it starts off hard and gets a bit softer. Red Dead Redemption 2 and GTA 5 PC did that originally with like the soft shadow options the games have, but not to the same precision that you'd get from a ray traced effect, which is what GTA 5 on consoles eventually added, covered in a video by us as well. And here you just don't really kind of see that in the trailer. And then there's a very specific example that John just mentioned right now. At the end of the trailer, you look at the top left corner as they open the door, bam, on the opaque door, I don't know, frame there, you can see what is just obviously a shadow map alias. And once again, we're zooming into the corners of an image.
It makes
we are not a parody of Digital Foundry. We are Digital
This
Foundry.
Is probably why I enjoyed the Blade Runner adventure game from Westwood back in the day, because you spend a lot of time zooming in on things just like in the movie, basically. I'm like, wait a minute, no wonder I like this game so much, because that's what we do here.
Zoom.
Now, this is like taking pixel peeping to a new level, but what can I say?
I will peep those pixels, John. I will peep those pixels.
So, shadows, not that exciting. It'll get the job done for sure. And I'm not surprised that they had to give, even though they did RT shadows on GTA 5, but something they had to give, as you say. But I think one of the more visually impressive features in this is something that our hair care expert Oliver here, who has a lot of experience with long flowing locks, noticed. It's the hair simulation.
Yeah, the hair sim The hair sim just looks incredible. Again, we're gonna have to go back to a shot that, maybe is a little bit suspect. But at 38 seconds, if you go to that shot, the way that character's hair moves here, it's flowing so unbelievably well, and there's no like visible clipping. It's all moving in just like this really nice manner. I think John likened it to truss effects, which I totally agree with. Like, it looks amazing. Now, if you look through this trailer, you'll see a lot of really great evidence of great hair physics throughout. This is the best example. You'll also see like some looks like dithering patterns on the hair. Like, it's not, the cleanest, but obviously that's a hard problem to solve. I mean, truss effects is kind of an old tech. I think in more recent games, we have not seen this attempt to really model long flowing hair in this really great way. So this is really cool to see.
We've seen a lot of games shift to a strand-based model that's extremely detailed and allows this like fine-grained zoom without any visible artifacts, really. But there hasn't been much of a focus on actually simulating the motion of hair, which is kind of a different problem to solve, I suppose.
It is. It's really only been the FIFA games, but they have a limit to hair length, I think. The reason for a game like this, and it was when they were doing Star Citizen presentations years ago, they mentioned that one of the things about you can get like one character in a scene with like strand-based hair, and then you like, what about the other characters, right? Like, one, you have to have the art to do that, and then two, you have to have the performance. So I'd be curious how they're doing it here. If it is like strand-based, it doesn't look it. Maybe it's
I actually don't think it doesn't necessarily look strand-based, and I think that's why it's kind of artifacty.
Yeah, it's kind of dithery looking.
Right, it has that dithered out, like,
yeah. In scenes in this game, you can see like there's just tons of characters on screen. It's not just like one character.
They all have it.
A soliloquy. No, they all have this hair.
This is nuts.
So it's really well done in spite of that dithered look, and really, really cool to see them push it further, because Red Dead Redemption 2, that's probably like one of the things that dates it the most is like the character rendering.
Oh yeah,
and the hair and stuff like that. So the beard looked okay in the game, but it didn't move or anything.
One other really cool shot here is at 52 seconds, again, that green truck where you see this guy with just this awesome crazy like dreads, and his hair is just going nuts in the wind. And like, I can't remember the last time I saw that in a game, hair actually moving in a violent manner in the wind. And maybe from a different angle, it would look a little glitchy or not so great. But I think that's just so cool that Rockstar is willing to go out and say, yeah, we're going to have like really crazy hair sim in the wind. Show you something cool. You haven't seen it in a while.
There's usually some like restraints to prevent that. Like, it can only go like so far horizontal, or self intersections don't occur, so you want to have like it not move too much. It's a lot of good stuff here.
That shot, by the way, again, the green truck, the paint on the truck there, right? First of all, you do have the RT reflection of the mirror there in the truck door, which is cool, but like the paint shader itself, look at that. That's so good looking. I mean, that looks better than some dedicated driving games, as you know.
Yeah, it really does, as we know. Yeah.
It's quite impressive, I gotta say. Actually, the material work there in general, like the way, like the plastic rim to the door to the right of the window itself, like it looks suitably plasticky, like what you'd expect in a car. And I'm just kind of impressed with the quality of the vehicle rendering in this trailer. And obviously, you're going to spend a lot of time doing vehicles.
And we
haven't seen Rockstar do vehicles since GTA 5, right? So this is again. I guess that's kind of the thing to remember here, is that we don't know what Grand Theft Auto would have looked like on a PS4 or an Xbox One, like, because the game we did get on there, that's a PS3 360 game, right? Like, it has those enhancements, but that's, this is actually something built for the new machines, and we've not seen it for so long. So it's really crazy to see what they're doing here. I'd be curious to know when they really, really, truly kicked off development on this game. Because wow,
I would also be curious. Yeah,
man, I also love that shot where they're in the intersection, doing sort of the donuts in the middle with the car, and you see all the smoke kicking up at night, and it's just kind of like filling the scene. That looks pretty good. There's so many things, but then of course there's the characters, right, Alex? That are like, the characters look really good, but it's obviously very clearly going for like stylized realism rather than actual like photorealism.
Yeah, 100%. It's a little bit in the proportions of some aspects of the face, a little bit. Like everyone looks a little bit. I don't know how to describe it. Someone put a comment on this web zone about what that is. I don't know what type of realism that is.
I think the eyes in particular are a little bit more prominent in the face, and then you have like this super smooth skin on all the characters, like relatively blemish-free skin. And I kind of contrast this because I think this is really good looking rendering, right? Just because it's stylized doesn't mean it doesn't look great. But if you look at something like, The Matrix Awakens, that's going for a very photoreal look, right? Still great looking rendering, fantastic looking rendering, very photoreal. This looks great.
Alan Wake
very
2,
stylized. Alan Wake, yeah, Alan Wake 2 as well.
Looking at it again, like at the prison section, right at the beginning of the video, the rendering kind of reminds me of Spider-Man, Insomniac's games, where they have these very detailed characters, but they're very clearly not designed to look like real, right? That's kind of what this reminds me of. And by the way, that I guess corrections officer or whoever it is at the beginning there, when parole officer, when she turns around and then goes into the office there and she's sitting at the desk, her hair, that's incredible. Like the way they've got all the little curls in there and everything bobbing around so realistically, like that kind of hair done at that level, that's awesome. That genuinely looks amazing. All the hair in this game looks absolutely killer. That's such a huge focus.
Killer hair.
And yet, despite that, they have these gigantic crowds full of, as the Simpsons would say, gigantic asses as well, bouncing around all over the place. That's how they roll, I guess, in this world. And that's also, I guess, impressive. Now, we don't